Up, an adventure to remember. Carl Fredrickson had lived in the same house for years. All around him things had changed. Houses had been torn down to make room for tall buildings. Now, builder wanted to buy Carl's house to tear it down too, but Carl refused to sell. The house meant too much to him. It was where he and his wife Ellie had lived. Now that Ellie had passed away, Carl felt that the house, filled with all its memories, were all he had left. When Carl learned that he was going to have to go to a retirement home, he came up with a plan. "I'll meet you at the van in a minute," Carl told the men who had come to pick him up. "I want to say one last goodbye to this old place." As the men walked back to their van, a giant shadow fell over them. They turned to see thousands of balloons rising into the air. The balloons had lifted the house off the ground. "So long, boys," Carl happily yelled out the window. He was headed for the place Ellie had always wanted to go, Paradise Falls in South America. Knock, knock, knock. Somebody was at Carl's door. But he couldn't imagine who it could be. He was thousands of feet in the air. He opened the door and discovered a young boy named Russell. The boy was a junior wilderness explorer. He'd gone to Carl's house because he wanted to earn his Assisting the Elderly badge, but Russell hadn't expected Carl's house to fly away. Inside the house, Carl and Russell were in for a wild ride. A flash of lightning crackled outside as a huge storm surrounded the house. Thunder rattled in the windows and the furniture trembled all over the place. Finally, the storm passed, and Carl and Russell crash-landed near Paradise Falls, South America. They both went flying off the porch. "My house!" cried Carl as it started to float away. Grabbing hold of the garden hose, he and Russell pulled the house down, but not far enough to get back inside. "We could walk your house to the falls," suggested Russell. Making a harness out of the garden hose, they began to pull the house. "Isn't this fun already?" Russell said. "By the time we get there, you're going to feel so assisted." Deep in the jungle, they stopped to take a break. Suddenly, Russell spotted unusual tracks in the mud. While Russell wondered what creature the footprints could belong to, he pulled out a chocolate bar and began munching on it. Just then, a huge beak appeared from the bushes. The creature nibbled on the chocolate too. "Don't be afraid," said Russell. "I'm a wilderness explorer, so I'm a friend to all of nature. Want some more?" He offered the strange creature more chocolate to lure it out of the bushes. When the creature emerged, it was the biggest, most colorful bird Russell had ever seen. He named the bird Kevin. Kevin wanted to be friends with Russell at once. "Hey, look, Mr. Fredrickson, it likes me," said Russell. "Can we keep him?" "No," Carl grumbled. He tried to get the bird to scram, but nothing worked. The bird followed them toward Paradise Falls. Before long, they met another unique creature. "Hi there," said a dog. "My name is Doug." Carl and Russell were shocked. They'd never met a talking dog before. "My pack sent me on a special mission," explained Doug. "Have you seen a bird?" Just then, Kevin flew out of the bushes and tackled Doug. "Hey, that is the bird!" Doug exclaimed. "May I take your bird as my prisoner?" Carl agreed, but Russell said no. Doug was friendly, though. He followed them and kept asking Kevin to be his prisoner. That evening, Russell made Carl promise to protect Kevin no matter what. The next morning, Kevin made a noise. "The bird is calling to her babies," explained Doug. Russell was shocked. "Kevin's a girl? Now that's just silly." Then the babies cried out. Kevin set off towards her family. Just after Kevin left, 3 fierce dogs appeared. "Where's the bird?" snarled the Alpha, the leader. The dog was part of Doug's pack, but they weren't like Doug at all. They were very mean. Alpha insisted that Carl and Russell and Doug be brought to his master. When the dogs barked and bared their teeth, Carl realized they didn't have a choice. They had to go. The dog pack led Carl and Russell to an enormous cave. An old man stood at the entrance, surrounded by angry-looking dogs. Carl thought the man looked familiar. "Are you the Charles Muntz?" he asked. The man smiled. He was a famous explorer. Long ago, he'd found a skeleton of a bird like Kevin, but no one had believed the bird existed. Muntz had vowed not to return to America until he captured a similar bird. Muntz invited Carl and Russell inside his giant airship. Carl recognized it right away. It was the famous Spirit of Adventure. To Carl's delight, Muntz gave them a tour of the airship. They looked at the trophies and treasures collected by Muntz over the years, and viewed old photographs and artifacts. At dinner, Muntz showed him his latest conquest. "I spent a lifetime tracking this creature," he said, revealing a skeleton of a giant bird. "Hey, that looks like Kevin," said Russell. Muntz raised an eyebrow. "Kevin?" "That's my new giant bird pet," explained Russell. Carl knew Muntz would steal Kevin if he found him. He tried to leave, taking Russell with him. Muntz became furious. He thought Carl and Russell were trying to steal the bird. "Get them!" he shouted to his dogs. Outside, as Carl and Russell got to the house, they heard a wail. It was Kevin. The bird scooped Russell and Carl onto her back and raced towards the cave opening, the house floating behind them. Doug tried to stop the other dogs, but it was no use. Muntz chased after them and even set Carl's house on fire. Carl was able to put out the flames. Meanwhile, Muntz captured Kevin and dragged the bird away. Carl hauled his house to the final steps to Paradise Falls. Russell did not help him. The boy was upset that Carl had let Muntz take Kevin and wasn't doing anything to get her back. Russell decided he was going to rescue Kevin by himself. When Carl finally got to the house, to exactly the right spot, he sat in his chair and looked at his wife's old scrapbook. It showed pictures of their life together. There was a note from Ellie telling him to go have an adventure of his own. Carl realized the house was just a house. His new friends were more important. Luckily, Doug was still around. Carl emptied his house so it would fly. Then he went to Muntz's airship and rescued Russell. Kevin was being guarded by the mean dogs. Carl had an idea. He grabbed a tennis ball from his cane. "Who wants the ball?" he asked the dogs. Carl threw the ball and the dogs chased it, allowing him to set Kevin free. Muntz made a final attempt to capture Kevin, but his foot caught on a bunch of balloons, and the explorer drifted away. Carl's house drifted away too, but now Carl understood that the most important memories lived in your heart, not just in your house. Kevin was reunited with her babies, and then it was time for Carl and Russell to head home. They boarded the Spirit of Adventure and waved goodbye to Kevin. Back home, Carl went to the Wilderness Explorer ceremony. Carl happily placed a soda cap pin his wife had given him onto Russell. He called it the Ellie badge. It was just the first of many adventures for Carl and Russell and Doug. The end.